turn it over next to Todd, who was going to throw a glass.
Yeah, right.
Really?
I'll just say,
just sort of short and to the point, you know. Just
Damon left, but I think the story right there. It's just basic economics, right? Either you know, Damon said, I didn't like it when they used to cut wages, right? And Amity told you what the answer was they cut wages and they didn't lay people off, right? You either have to, if the economy goes south, you either unemployment rises or you cut wages, right? That's it. Those are your two options. And so you're going to get, if you stabilize wages, you're going to get 25% unemployment, as Amity described. And that struck me as a world that had a lot of social sort of friction as well when we decided not to cut wages during the Great Depression, right? So those are our choices, and that's just economics, and we can't wish it away. But there are things that go along with isolating labor unions and and labor from market pressures, which is let's not turn. Maybe there were good things about unions, but read David Bernstein's research and people like that. We also know what those unions were like in the 50s and 60s, right? Look how many discrimination cases had labor unions as the defendants, because when you're basically creating economic rents, they were rationing access to unionized employment by cronyism, by race, by whether they were your pal, by whether they were your son, whether they were your relative, right? That's what the world is. That goes along with the idea if you're going to have that sort of world as well, because when you're creating above market wages, you got to find some way of clearing that market, and that's how they cleared that market. And so 1973. Since then, what we've seen is the market is a lot more flexible. Women have entered the workforce. It's no coincidence, I don't think, that women have entered the workforce since labor unions, to some extent, lost their stranglehold on the economy, because those are exactly the kind of people who get excluded when you cartelize the labor in the economy.
Last word to Amity Shlaes. If past is prologue, what else do we have to look forward to in terms of this potential emerging new paradigm with greater government power, a resurgence of organized labor, and the financial sector somewhat under the thumb of government regulation?
Well, I want to say something optimistic. First, about the 1950s. We all have a nostalgia for the 1950s. That's what Todd is trying to debunk. It wasn't really like that. They say that Democrats want to work in the 1950s and Republicans want to live in the 1950s. So here we are spending an hour thinking about going back, and that great there's no disparity between wage and productivity in that wonderful era. And I would say the short answer to why there is not disparity between wage and productivity changes in that period is that we were the only power around. We didn't know it, but we were protected because we had no economic challengers. Germany was just beginning with its economic miracle. What was Asia? Well, you know what Asia was. India was a place that expected forever to be non-aligned and have what they say the Hindi rate of growth, never grow, be socialist. So we can long for it, but we can't have it back. And when you see the beginning of that disparity, the 70s, well, that's also when globalization is beginning to happen. But if you follow generally what I would say the labor's argument, the answer to how do we deal with that now, the answer has to be protectionism. And what I would like to close with is the statement that protectionism is not the only answer to a high standard, if you seek a high standard of living, productivity gains, and so on. The answer is education and freedom. Freedom to have education and education. So if you work on that, and the union that concerns me the most in the United States are the teachers' unions, because of the way that they keep our youth from gaining the ability to compete. So you can turn it into a positive, but it's not about wages and benefits and so on. Thank you very much.
Well, I want to thank each one of our panelists for a spirited and very interesting discussion, all of you for your attention span, and we'll see you at the next event.